USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is Stephen Redmiles, and I grew up in Severin, Maryland, which is near Fort Meade. It was all farmland, tobacco, truck farms, which is anything you can put in a basket and take to market. 16-acre farm, but my dad worked for the Civil Service at Fort Meade, and my mom eventually worked at Fort Meade and NSA. My father was in the Army Air Corps in Mississippi. He worked on training a squadron, and they had wooden planes with wooden wings, and my dad was one of the few people that could fix them. And my sister had worked at NSA from inception, and some of her social gatherings I had contact with the Marines, and I personally always thought the Marines were the best service, and I kind of wanted to aspire to that, but I knew enough that I didn't want to go in the infantry, the grunts, the 03. So once I decided, I took a test in Baltimore at Fort Holabird, an aptitude test, and found out that I was mechanically inclined for some reason, and that I qualified for a 4-year aviation guarantee in the Marine Corps. I didn't realize that meant I could be planting trees around the runway, and that would have fulfilled their obligation. But so I had hoped to go into the crash crew because I had service in the volunteer fire department, had training. I thought surely they will take advantage of my training. So I became enlisted in the Marine Corps, which my parents were. My dad was kind of proud of. My mom's like, no. So I told him 15 days before I left, September 15th, I said, I'm on a train to Paris Island. So that was the beginning of the adventure. When we get there, the DI gets on the bus before we get off and starts yelling and barking at us. And it was full go. There was no walking slowly from there on for about 2 months. Every time they talked to you, the brim of their hat was right on your forehead as they were yelling at you. It was pretty intimidating. I was in panic probably most of the time. I'm not very religious, but I remember writing my grandmother, I really enjoyed church because it was the only hour a week I got to sit down and relax. We went back to North Carolina by bus. We went to Geiger, which was an infantry training camp there. If you were in the air wing, you got like 6 weeks. If you were going to be infantry, you got longer. They had different lengths of programs. Since I was a wing wiper, or a raggy as the term goes in the Marine Corps, I had like 6 weeks, and then I went to right next door to New River Air Facility, which was a helicopter base there, the largest helicopter base in the world at the time. I went assigned to a squadron, HMM, which is Helicopter Medium Marine Corps, 365 in New River. I was a member of the squadron, the new kid on the block, did all the stuff, and basically worked my way up to later on being crew chief. Then in September of '66, we boarded the USS Boxer, which was a World War II carrier, and we went on a Caribbean shakedown cruise for the helicopters, and we had a grunt battalion. We went down to the island called Viegas. We came back, half of us went on leave for Christmas, and then they had to sign up. Anybody wanted to volunteer for Vietnam, so we all signed up. Even the guys that had gone on leave, we signed them up to volunteer for Vietnam, which some of the guys didn't appreciate when they came back. Since by the time they came back, they had orders for Westpac. Well, I went to California to take refresher grunt training. I got locked up out there for having a false ID because I wasn't old enough to drink. Went back and I had office hours with my CEO the next day. He goes like, you're going to Vietnam in 2 weeks, so you're confined to the base and we'll let that go. So that's probably punishment enough. After 2 months, we got on the USS Okinawa, which was the newer LPH helicopter carrier. We did a shakedown cruise, and then we pulled the first amphibious assault on the DMZ. We lost like 65 Marines. There were so many lost. We had both hospital ships, the Sanctuary and the Repos, at different times, but they didn't have enough room for the bodies on the ship, so they would send them back to the carrier, and they would debomb them on the outside elevator And they did find some hand grenades in some of the guys. They'd shoot them up, put a hand grenade in their intestines, and then we flew them back in a helicopter before we realized they could have blown up. So this is me on the USS Okinawa. Another view, this is me getting ready to pick up grunts. There's the number 4, you can probably see that's because that was the second number 4. The first one was a strike.
Yeah.
And I was still cavalier, you know. Yeah. One of the first places we went in, we were taking grunts into this rice paddy and they started walking mortars in on us, and I said that casually to the helicopter pilot, and when we got back he said, if you ever have that tone of voice when we're getting mortared, I will choke your ass. But anyhow, so as you're young, you're still cavalier, you know. It wasn't serious until later on, 8, 9 months, and you go like, now I'm thinking death's pretty final. Okay, so this is, if you plane took a crap in Vietnam, they would bring you back on a sling with the 53, and this is just an example of what the plane looked like with the radial engine out of it.
Oh, that's cool.
1,500 horsepower, same thing on a DC-3, had 2 of them. It's a HU-34, it's a Sikorsky 34, had a single 1,520 horsepower radial engine. Grease pig, the rotor head had like 135 grease fittings, very hard to shoot down. I actually took some rounds and the number 9 cylinder, had to change the engine because it still kept running and took us back. But there is the hat with the wings that I still have at my house. The wings were not politically correct.
Pretty cool.
This is a site that they used to rocket Da Nang, and we went out and surveyed the area, and the colonels just left that in my plane, so I have it now. Huh. It's a good friend of mine. We were staying there as those their high water trousers.
What, do you remember his name?
Skip Hall. He's from Florida. I thought I was really doing the right thing. It was the Deer Hunter. If you ever seen the movie Deer Hunter, I was a naive kid that thought I was doing the right thing. And then, you know, as you look back, you're like, we would go into areas and do this insertion, and then we'd pull out of it again. And then the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese would move back in, and you'd have to go back again. So the people running the strategic center, they're like, are these guys retarded? Like Westmoreland. And I felt very sorry for the people at that point, because they were just a country and trying to get along, just trying to have a life. And everybody's trying to come in and take their country, the French, the whatever, the communists. Then we got involved in that. And they just wanted to survive. When I was on the Okinawa, I was involved in a mid-air collision at 1,000 feet. We were going down and he was landed, and we were doing a 180 across the top of him. He was taking off, he started taking heavy automatic weapons fire. As we continued over, he climbed right into the tail of our plane, chopped the tail rotor off and the part of the tail pylon off. That put him into a stall. At 1,000 feet, you could hear him, I could hear him cranking, trying to get the engine going up, but he was too close and he had lost all of his speed, so and we were going 60 knots, so we kept our stability because the plane aerodynamic will allow you to do that. And then we went down into the zone because it's secure, and we landed in a dried up rice paddy, which is like landing on a brick street. All the landing gear was gone. It was, you know, terrible. So this is the squadron I was in initially in Vietnam. I joined the HMM 263 helicopter medium marine. It's tethered and moored. So this is the area we were in, the I Corps, which was the northern part of the Vietnam operation from Quang Ngai up to the DMZ. Used to fly to Khe Sanh. These are the guys that got killed over there. These were the guys in the midair with me, those 4, and crashed and burned. This is what was left of my plane after the midair. You can notice the tail rotor and part of the pylon's gone. It was cracked. A little scary. I screwed my right leg up, which was the beginning of a long story, but yeah, so but I still, that didn't register. I still thought I was okay. Spent a month with a knee immobilizer on the carrier with watertight compartments. That's lovely. I tore my toes up trying to crutches and go through them without banging your legs. But then I went back again, and that's when I came up with I thought, wow, I've heard of the Red Baron. I'll be the yellow baron. I'll be the chicken shit baron. So I painted a yellow stripe on the back of my helmet and my bullet bouncer. And there's a picture somewhere here of that. You know, whatever. This is an old guy, a staff sergeant. So that's was my kind of position. You had a pivot there with your M60 on it. This is a newer plane because it has a different landing gear on it. Some of them were bent legs, some were straight legs. I experienced a lot of stuff. I had them throw hand grenades at my plane. I got a single mission air medal for that. I mean, you can't throw hand grenades very far. We picked these grunts up right next to a tree line in a field, and they were putting ordnance down with planes, and as soon as the planes would pull out, you'd see muzzle flashes because they were in fighting holes. 90 days on the carrier, and then we offloaded at a place called Kiha. It was a helicopter base just north of Chula. You can see the dirt there instead of. That's me and my hooch. I was a little bit thinner then. We flew out of there. We flew from there south to Quang Ngai. So we used to resupply the ROKs, the Royal Marines of Korea, and they would shoot at us at night because they were bored. We were flying medevacs. You know, you'd see tracers coming up. Like some days it wouldn't be that bad, but most of the times you got shot at. My plane had many bullet holes in it. So this is just beautiful country. We're heading up Khe Sanh that way. It's, you know, just cool shots of the plane. The mountains, sometimes if it's foggy, we almost flew into a mountain one day, and like all of a sudden we like flared out like, oh, holy shit, there's a cliff there. And this is the runway at Khe Sanh. That's east, and this is west. That's North Vietnam. There was a thing up, a base up here, 950. When you resupplied, you could only put one wheel down on it. It was on top of a mountain. And you'd sit there and you would oscillate in the mud as you unloaded shit. Because you were at the top, you had wind direction coming up from all directions. And we used to supply 881, 861, all those mountains. Our squadron colors got retired 263, sent back, and we end up being divided into the other squadrons. So I went to Squadron 362, which were called the Ugly Angels, and we were stationed out of Phu Bai. We would fly into Laos, do inserts in the morning, fly back in the afternoon, hoping you were picking the right people up. And one of the last times we did that, a buddy of mine that had gotten basket leave, which was a term, if you got over there, they wanted people to extend. So if you extended 6 months, they would send you anywhere for 30 days and it wouldn't count against your leave. He came home to New Jersey, got married, came back, and he wanted to crew the plane, my plane, with the pilot. So I took his, he took mine. And he got shot right between the eyes and died. They flew him out of Khe Sanh on C-130, and his name is on the wall. I was very, very lucky. I mean, most people don't survive a mid-air, and then I was shot in the fuel cells on fire at 2,000 feet. And this is the plane that I was crewing and caught on fire. We shot on fire. As it burned, we climbed up and called artillery strikes on them because you couldn't see, but there were people closing in on the aircraft site. You have to accept that that's your job, and that's what you were there to do. After I got out, I was in the fire service, and a lot of people go, oh, you're here. No, that's our job. That's what we get paid to do. I'm glad that you're grateful, and we're glad we can help. You know, in the fire service, you either kill somebody or you save their life. You either burn their house down or you save it. But there's no long-term stress because 7 o'clock the next morning, you hopefully did a good job, and you get off and go somewhere else. The military wasn't quite that simplified, but it was, you do your best and move on. 1,300 flight hours in 12 months. The last 4 weeks I realized that death was final, so I gave up my flight pay. Once you give up your flight pay there, you go to shit detail. We put down Marshall matting. Do you know what that is? There's sections of steel thing, and you can make a runway with it. You put them together like so you'd lever up, and we would go out and laboriously put them down in Phu Bai, putting stuff for the airplane, hard top for the airplane. We got rocketed, and we took all the booze out of the officers' club because they had booze. So we ended up, it got raucous. We had to move all the booze from there to another place. And as we're doing it, we're in the back of a deuce and a half, all this booze, and we're like, hey, we're throwing them like 1.75s of booze out, getting rid of it before we got to the storage room. You know, I came back, I didn't have a whole lot of interaction. It was still, I found out, the biggest thing I found out was I'd been away from my folks for 18 months, and I'm thinking, wow, things have changed and whatever, and I want to get back. And I did miss them. And then I got back and like, the only thing that changed was me. Everything else was still the same. When I got out, I joined the volunteer fire department again, or resumed and whatever. I always I'm a man of action. Whatever I do, I'd like to see the results of it. I've worked in hospitals, only worked in critical care units or the ER. I am proud of my service. I'm pretty proud of my life, but I don't do a lot of hoorah. I look back and I had a very small graduating class in a rural high school, maybe 300 and something, like 150 people went in the military, volunteered at that time. I think it's a generational thing. That doesn't happen anymore. I think respect is lost and has been lost. Integrity. When was the last time you heard that word used? Yeah. It's such a feeling of gratification when you do a good job. When you save somebody's life, no, I don't want to parade. It's my job. But still a great feeling of satisfaction. Know that not because I'm something special, because I've been trained. And that's my job.